Good morning, students. So we are going to be starting a new unit or a new piece of our innovations unit. This novel that we're going to be reading is called The Phantom Toll Booth. You may have heard of it. And The Phantom Toll Booth, we're using it in this unit for a couple of reasons. It's a really innovative novel, the way that it uses some literary devices. And we were studying innovations earlier with the humanities and social studies aspect. So now we're going to be talking about how this novel uses these kinds of literary devices in a super innovative way. So you'll see as you start reading this that there's some really clever plays on words, and usually this is a novel that students typically like. So you're going to learn today about what we'll do with these. The first thing that you should have done is put your vocabulary document and your literary devices document into your Notability. If you haven't done that, pause right now to do it. The second thing that you should have done is to set your alarm for tomorrow's live lesson, which will be at 9:30. If you haven't done that right now, do it. Pause this video and do it. So the first thing that I want you to have is this document called Literary Devices in the Phantom Toll Booth. You should have it downloaded, but you can look on the video until it's time to use it. So we are actually only going to talk about the top two today. The other ones will be for tomorrow. So you don't need to worry about anything except the top two of them. So because of that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit and make sure that you guys can just follow along with the top two only today. So the first thing is literal versus figurative language. Now this word literal, you might have heard in common usage conversation. Somebody says, oh, I literally did blank, or I literally said blank. And what that means is they're saying that whatever they did or said was exactly what they said with words. There's no hidden or symbolic meaning implied. So you might say, the pencil is red. We're not trying to say that the pencil is really hot because it's red or something. No, it is red. I am happy. No symbolic or hidden message. The computer is on the bed. No symbolic or hidden message. Now, the opposite of that is figurative language. Now, figurative language is this big category that has lots of different things underneath it, and you'll recognize some of these things like similes or metaphors or personification, or you might know hyperbole. It's an exaggeration, extreme exaggeration. And we're also going to be talking about puns and idioms during this unit. So figurative language means any of these things that are used to describe something in a way that makes it more interesting, but it's not actually what's happening. So you'll see down below, when people say, oh, I'm starving, well, chances are, probably 99% or more of the time, that I'm starving really just means I'm very hungry. It's an over-exaggeration. And so in this case, it's using figurative language, this exaggeration of or hyperbole, to make it sound more emphatic or interesting. The next is I'm feeling blue or sad. We're not actually saying my skin is blue, but it's a way of saying that you're sad. I died of embarrassment. No one's actually dying of this, but it feels really bad. I laughed my head off. No one's head falls off their body, but we mean that we laughed a lot. Or the trees danced in the wind. The trees aren't actually dancing. That's a usage of personification. They're just moving because of the flow of the breeze. Now, before we cover idioms, we're going to go down to the second page of this document. So the second page of this document looks like this, and I'm going to do the first one with you. So the directions say that you have to draw the literal and the figurative meaning, and you're not going to use an internet image. You're going to draw it even if you're not a great artist. As you know, I am not. So this first one says, the flowers were begging for water. Now, flowers don't actually beg. With that, we're using personification. The type of figurative language is personification. What we literally mean versus figuratively mean are going to be two different things. The literal meaning of this is that there are flowers that are actually able to speak and can beg. Now, we know that's not true. So the literal meaning looks something like this. Maybe we might have a flower begging for water. So it might look something like this. You might have the flower begging for water because it's actually able to speak. Now, we know that that's not what they're saying. There's not a real flower out there that's able to speak and say this. So the figurative meaning of this is actually that we probably have a flower that's very, very dry and near dying. So your drawing might look something like the second one. So what we have here are two different things. The first one is the literal meaning. If we took this literally, we would assume that flowers were able to speak. And if we understand what the figurative meaning of this is that we have a flower that's probably really dead and leaves are falling off. It looks like it needs water really badly to survive. So your job is that you're going to go through the rest of this. The next one you see is this bag weighs a ton. What does that mean literally? If we took these words literally, what would that mean? If we understand the figurative meaning of it, what does that mean? And you're going to go all the way down to the bottom of this page. So you should pause this video here right now until you finish this page on literal versus figurative language and all the drawings for it. So if you are on this part, it means you have already finished your literal versus figurative meanings, and now we can talk about what idioms are. All right, so idioms, they are a phrase or an expression that typically represents a figurative, non-literal. So we're talking more about figurative language that you just finished, not literal meanings attached to it. So Norton Juster, the author of this book that we're going to be reading, uses idioms with both literal and figurative, and that's part of the innovative way that he writes. So some examples might be, bit my head off. So if someone bites your head off, it typically means that they yelled at you or snapped at you for no reason. But it doesn't mean that they're literally eating your head. So if people say, oh, my brother came home mad and bit my head off, that means he came home and yelled at me. But that's a phrase or a saying, which we call an idiom. And another one might be, what's the name of your school? Something with an N, Nero, Nato. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite remember it. So something that's on the tip of your tongue means you're very close to remembering or saying it, but you can't quite get it. Like, I almost have it. It's like yeah, I'm going to say it in a second. That means something that's on the tip of your tongue. So these kinds of phrases or idioms are using figurative language, but you're going to see in the novel how the author uses them both literally and figuratively to create an interesting world and story. So you will see that this is linked. I assume that you can access it, but you actually do not need to access that link. What you do need to do is scroll down to the next page, or the page that talks about idioms on this document. It looks like this. So what you'll do is you'll see that idioms exist in all languages, and you might recognize some of these, or you might say, oh, I speak a different language, but I recognize some of these in the language that I speak as well. So what you will do is you will choose from here, you will choose one of these, even if it's not in the language that you know it. I have it translated in English. And just like the previous activity, you'll choose the idiom, write your idiom here, and then you'll show me the literal meaning of this, and then you'll show me the figurative meaning of this. So the literal meaning is, if we were saying in Armenian, stop ironing my head means stop bothering me, the literal meaning would be somebody ironing a head, and the figurative meaning is what we would understand that it's supposed to mean. So you would draw, this is what it's supposed to mean, and this is what it actually says with the words that are written right here. So you'll do that for just one, and go ahead and pause this video right here until you complete this drawing and have chosen your idiom. Now that you have done your drawing, you're going to go to the next part, and the next part says that you should be looking at this Google form. So you can access it here, or it is linked from the slideshow, and you will read some idioms in English. Using the Google form, you'll write a short story using any 3 idioms from this Google form. All 3 idioms should be used in one mini story, not separate ideas. So you're going to use them all about something. It should all connect somehow. You're not going to do like 1, 2, 3. It's going to be all connected in some sort of short paragraph where they're in there. So let's go look at this Google form now. Here's your Google form. You should know you'll read the idiom. I'm feeling under the weather. Under the weather is the idiom. It means I'm feeling sick or somewhat unwell. If you know it really well, you'll mark the first one. If you're like, I've heard of this, but it's not common for me to use it or hear it, or if you're like, whoa, I just learned this, you'll mark the last one. So you'll do that for everything on this document. And then when you get to the end, you'll submit. But remember, you're going to pick 3 out of here, so you might need to go back in and look at them when you're done. Because the 3 that you choose, you'll have to put into a short story on the previous document, like a paragraph or something. So go ahead and pause this video while you complete the the Google form right now. Once you've completed the Google form, you'll go back to write your 3 at the bottom of the document. And that's the document that looks like this that we were just talking about. So just pause here so you can fill out your form and make your short story using 3. So now that you have finished the work on literal versus figurative language and idioms, you'll pause here and keep that document. We're going to work on it some more tomorrow, and then you can turn it in. The next thing that you need to be looking at is going back to the slideshow and making sure that you have your vocabulary document downloaded. And you'll see that we have done this kind of activity before. However, there's a little bit of a different look to your vocabulary this time, and I want to just talk about what the first couple pages look like. So this document has a little bit of a different look. You'll see that the first pages look like this, with a bunch of vocabulary words in squares, and then the second one is a bunch of idioms. So I want to talk about how we're going to use this right now. So if you're thinking about normally we just have a list of words, you actually have 2 pieces that you can use. You have vocabulary words, but you also have idioms that you're going to be required to learning. So there's like what, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 26 different words. Now I'm only asking you to do 12 during this process, and today you're only going to do a total of 3. So you don't need to do all 12 today. We'll do them by Friday. But when I say that you need to pick 3 and eventually 12, it could be from here, or it could be from here and mix it, or it could be from all one side. So you get to choose however you want to do these. You can pick either vocabulary words or idioms or a mix of the 2 when you do your vocabulary drawings. So I know we normally only have vocabulary words, but now we're going to have vocabulary words and idioms or phrases that the book is going to use that I want you to know. So again, now it is time for you to pause. You're going to do 3 of these today. And when I say you're going to do 3 of these, you'll recognize that this is the document we have typically used. So you'll see that this looks the same as what we've done before. It's important for you to remember that you do need to put the vocabulary word you've chosen, and you do need to write the meaning or definition here, and then do your picture down here. Both. People always forget this, and this costs them points. Go ahead and pause now, and you are finished with this video.